Well, well, well. It is that time again. And although I have been quite late in getting to this, I have finally finished the marking of this year's CGV projects. And in tradition or second year running now, I'm going to go through some of the honorable mentions in terms of what you guys have put together. And the format of that is going to be similar to what I did last year, which is a little Grammy, Oscar, Game of the Year awards style video. So jumping straight into it, the first category is for best sound design, and this is basically a category that's for games that marry the ideas of the gameplay, design, atmosphere with audio design. So our first nominee for this category is Pixelate with their game Dead Zone Survival Rush. And what was pretty cool, what they implemented was a directional sound system. So, based on your like left and right ears, you could hear the sounds coming, from those directions. And additionally was a somewhat dynamic weather system that incorporated lightning. And, these elements married together with all the sound effects of movement, guns, shooting, the zombies themselves as well, really added to the experience. Our second nominee is from Ludens, the Stairwell Iliad. And again, basically similar ideas here with, really building towards a spooky atmosphere with different elements of sound, working or adding to this, whether it be the music or atmospheric sounds towards the actual sound effects of, the swinging pendulum lights, as well as the player walking up and down the stairs. And then our third nominee in this category is from Control CV with the game called Floppy. And again, it was quite a well-designed game. They even, did a nice trailer, which obviously incorporated sound, music, and all of these things, and they were really well married together. They also had, sound effects for the different animations of like walking, running, and stuff like that, and how these blended together or like blend through the transition was really well executed. So yeah, those were, in my opinion, the best representations of sound design for this year, from Pixelates, Ludens, and Control CV. And the winner for best sound design goes to Pixelate with their dynamic weather system, their like left and right directional sound system, as well as all the bells and whistles of sound effects and animations and how sound like affected those. So yeah, congratulations to Pixelate for that good effort. Cool. Now the next category is for best art direction, and similar to sound, this is like was there a cohesive style, a cohesive art aesthetic that was consistent throughout maybe the different levels or throughout the game itself? And given that, was the actual art direction or that aesthetic well executed, and did it just in general look quite good? So our first nominee for this one is from the group called Renderbender with their game Dante's Returnal. And this was all about, traversing a maze to try find a few different items such that you can progress to, more and more difficult levels. One such being here. Now, what was really cool in terms of their art direction, you can kind of see in the beginning here, is this, for one, an isometric view, which was quite cool. Harkens back to those Diablo style games, as well as the use of like different texture maps to really make the ground stand out. So that was our first nominee, Render. Our second one is from Blocky Cars, a team called Car Hat. And this was a really interesting application of Minecraft, or building worlds within Minecraft and then like importing them into a 3D environment. So you kind of get that Minecraft aesthetic for free. And I'm a sucker for Minecraft, and it looks really really good, and the performance was also really good. So both of these things really added to the experience. And again, it was a very consistent theme, right? It genuinely felt like the car existed in this world, and it made sense. The next team is Team Vortex with their game called Speed Shopper. And if you ever want to, get your shopping done in the quickest possible time, well, this is the game for you. And again, the reason I like this one a lot was because of the consistency. A lot of games, felt a little bit like a mashed together, collection of free assets that they found online, which is, fine. But in terms of like visual consistency, this game stands out quite well because everything seems like it belongs together, from the characters to the little hoovers that move around. Just a side note on that, Richard definitely appreciated the little like hoover drones. He found them quite cute. So these are our three nominees once again: Dante's Inferno, Speed Shopper, and Blocky Cars. And this year's winner for Best Art Direction goes to Dante's Returnal. And I think the one thing that really like set this one apart for me, maybe I'm just a sucker for it, but was that isometric view. And I think it was done really well, as well as the atmosphere that was created with the different texture maps that they applied to the ground. I must admit, I did prefer the first two levels to the last one in terms of the art style. Um, and some things were somewhat out of place, but in terms of the things that they executed really well, those stood out to me the most. So congratulations to Team Render Bender. Cool. Next category was Best Narrative. So this was like a clarity. Well, to begin with, was there a narrative? And did that narrative evolve over the different levels? Perhaps there was some conflict and then resolution, some goal that was needed to be achieved, and then a payoff for achieving that goal. And one of the groups that did well at achieving this idea was Galaxy Meow with their Space Pause Odyssey. And here you're, lost on a distant moon or a planet, and you have to collect various items and resources to, find your way back home. And this story evolves where, somehow wind up, going to the wrong destination or getting lost and having to find your way back home. Yeah. Next is a game called Psycho Hunter from the team called Psycho Hunters. And if it isn't obvious, you have to hunt psychos, so it's like a detective style game. And the levels that you play are position you to help solve this like mystery over a few different set pieces. Some of these like different environments you can see in the video. It was pretty cool. Like the UI was quite well done. You could interrogate and investigate witnesses, find pieces of evidence, and then perform some deduction in order to solve the mystery. Next is Elden Ring Conquerors with their game called Street Cred. And this reminded me a lot about like Need for Speed Most Wanted. And the storyline kind of like embodied that idea where in Most Wanted you were like, progressively racing against higher and higher tiered races, and in the same vein, you are doing the same process here, where each level is racing against storyline wise or narrative wise another one of the students in the group, to be honest. So each track has like a different level, and this there's a storyline behind each of these levels, which was done quite well. And next, once again, nominated for the second time now, is the Stairwell Iliad from Ludens. Showing you just some out of bounds stuff there for a second. But the whole game here was about trying to recapture some lost memories of your loved ones. And as you progress throughout this infinite stairwell, you learn, or you have to try, figure out the mystery of like what is the name of your loved one and types of things, um, which I thought was a clever mechanic, and inspired by like things like dementia and stuff like that. Cool. So here, these were our four nominees for best narrative, or the games I feel that best, incorporated some sort of story into their game. That's Spaceballs Odyssey, Psycho Hunter, The Stairwell Iliad, and Street Cred. And the winner this year for best narrative went to Street Cred. And although they only really integrated a narrative through purely text, or there is a video in the beginning as well. Um, I very much appreciated the personalization of incorporating themselves into their own game as well, and that's yeah, like I said, was appreciated. Cool. Moving on to best meme. This is pop culture references or anything uh, along those lines, and this has been done last year pretty well, I thought. Um, so the nominees for best meme, the first one is from Control CV with their very funny um, banter, shall we call it, towards last year's um, top games. And a bit of banter is always appreciated and should be seen as just purely for what it is, some funny, playful humor. Um, and yeah, so the first nominee goes to Floppy, of course. The next one is Mega Graphics with Soweto Chronicles. And for the life of me, they never mentioned whether or not this like home screen here was using Polycam, which is what I presented at the end of the year. And if it was, that's like hugely like appreciated to do something like that. You definitely should have mentioned it in your video. But regardless, the whole game is inspired by like this African or South African experience. What with some of the symbolism, and for a second there you saw petrol prices and the petrol station as well, and yeah, these types of references were again humorous and funny to witness within the game. And of course, Elden Conquerors as well, with their like play on incorporating themselves directly into the game and making it a little bit more personal to you guys as students rather than just making some generic game. Yeah, so the nominees once again: Floppy, Street Cred, and Soweto Chronicles. And the winner, of course, goes to Control CV with their well-produced video ripping on last year's top games. So yeah, congratulations to Control CV for winning Best Meme. Now, this isn't always yeah, well, I don't want to use the word fun, but this is uh, a category which doesn't mean like it's the best game per se or the most complex or visually appealing, but just makes me want to play it more and more and more because there's some sort of like addictive hook. So this is the most fun to play. And one of these is a game called Fat Guys from Chicken Tendies. And Fat Guys is a little bit of a play on Fall Guys if you've ever played that. But it's essentially an obstacle course with a timer. It doesn't take much more than that to get me really addicted if the mechanics or like the movement is smooth enough and intuitive enough, which it was. One thing I must mention is that the record times seem a little suspicious. They almost seem perfect, but I did try my best to beat all of them. So that's Fat Guys. The next one is Bullet Hole from Shader Society. And again, this is like your classic boss fighter game, bullet hell boss fight game. There are loads of these style games, and again, it's like a very simple idea. Just dodge the bullets and shoot your own bullets. It was cool that they incorporated different boss fights that had phases and these types of things as well. So again, another game that I played a lot. Next, we have Speed Shopper. And again, give me some objective and a timer, and I am going to try speed run the hell out of it. The only downside to this game was that it was very performance intensive. So like I can imagine if you try to play this on like a weaker laptop or desktop, it lags a little bit, which did take away from the experience. And sometimes it's kind of hard to know where these items are, but that adds to the difficulty of the game, which was not a negative. And that was Speed Shopper once again. Another one is a game called Nitro Assault from, Onsite or Big O site, our complexity group. And again, it's just, the idea is simple in essence, start, race to a goal, you get a high score. And again, that addictiveness of trying to beat the high scores was what kept me coming back for more. Similar issue with the previous game, a little bit poorly optimized, which took away a little bit from the experience. But in general, a very fun one to play. And you should see my name is on a lot of these records, so you should play it and then try to beat my score. Cool. So in terms of most fun, these are our nominees: Fat Guys, Speed Shopper, Bullet Hole, and Nitro Assault, with the winner being Chicken Tendies. I've definitely played this game too much, purely because I think that first level of time was. I would love to see a video of that world record time for Fat Guys on level 1. But yeah, simple mechanics, good controls, which is not something all the games had, and an addictive like gameplay loop. Not, what else could you really ask for? All right, the next category is most innovative. So these were like, that innovation metric in your rubric, which group really, took this to the next level. Last year, groups did stuff with like anti-aliasing and implementing all types of stuff like that. This year, it was good to see a whole, slew of different techniques being applied, with the first nominee being Control C, with floppy. And here they utilize like finite state machines for animation control. They made their own trailer, which requires some like video editing, of course. The whole animation suite was really well executed. And yeah, I thought this was a really good example for most innovative. Also, just a beautiful looking game. Next, we have AFK Clan. And although I would say they didn't execute things, to the best of what I was hoping for a lot of the different mechanics, it is like a golf with friends style game. They did implement a multiplayer, which, although a little janky, was workable. And this was the first time multiplayer has been attempted. So I think it's very commendable, and this is exactly what we're looking for when it comes to innovation, right? Doing something that no other group has done. And at the end there, you can see there's a nice little like shader on the, trying to represent water, and you can see the lights reflecting off of it, which is quite cool as well. So that is Golf World from AFK Clan. The next one is Blocky Cars from Car Hat. And again, just taking, building a level inside Minecraft, thinking about, okay, how can we then export that level into JavaScript or 3JS is, quite an inspired idea, I think. And that's exactly what they did, right? Exporting the level into some sort of Blender package, and then from Blender exporting it into like a 3JS object with colliders and handling all of that. Very difficult task. And one thing that was also super interesting was their dynamic loading and unloading of the level, which makes the game playable on a wide variety of machines. So that performance optimization was really good to see. So here were our three nominees for most innovative: floppy, golf world, and blocky cars. And at least in my opinion, the award well deservedly goes to blocky cars from the group Car Hat. Again, for the performance optimization, the idea for one was innovative in itself, and then the execution of it to get that all done is super impressive. So yeah, congratulations to Team Car Hat. Now, last year I did a specific award for one of the most common types of games that what came out, and last year it was a lot of mazes. And not to say there weren't a lot of mazes this year, but there were definitely a lot more spooky games this year than I've ever seen. So instead of best maze, I decided to go with best spooky. Um, and I'm pretty sure on the next slide it's going to say best maze, but because I forgot to change it and I can't be bothered right now. But in terms of best spooky game, was there a game that had a consistently creepy atmosphere that was immersive, that actually got you to fear perhaps what was around the corner? Or was there like an intensity or like the psychological impact, um, of like suspense or any type of psychological tricks? And the first nominee is the Anti-Bozo Bozo Club with Abyss Walker. And I really liked the aesthetic style that they went with here, with like this very dimly lit purple like hued environment. It was a puzzle game, and then it kind of actually felt like three different games for each level. But the main mechanic was that you had to stay in light. Um, at the end here, there's like a short little clip that I just got of this boss fight that you had to do at the end. So yeah, that was Abyss Walker. Next is Psycho Hunter from Psycho Hunters, and we've seen this one already before. But from the sound design to the levels themselves, look, I understand that doing anything in 3JS somewhat limits the abilities that you have. It's somewhat hamstrung, but even so, some of the scenes had like fog. The storyline itself was quite creepy. There was a wide variety of horror, esque elements like blood splatters and creaky doors and that type of thing included. So a well-deserved nomination for best spooky. A new game that we haven't seen like nominations so far was Friday the 13th from TDKU. Um, and again, it was like an escape room style game with different puzzles and just different puzzles that you had to try solve in order to escape. Three very different levels. Again, exhibiting the telltale signs of a spooky game, like dark, flashlight-based gameplay, um, creepy noises, not necessarily jump scares, but things along those lines um, were well executed. And then, of course, don't know what's going on. Okay, well, we won't have a video for this one. But as the Stairwell Iliad from Ludens, again, this was actually a one-man developer, I forgot to mention. So that's incredibly well done. With the basic game being you climbing different stairs, trying to solve the puzzle of, well, it's kind of like a backrooms style game if you're familiar with that. And from the lighting to the actual just nature of the game, to the sound effects, all harmonize really well to generate quite a scary, or at least maybe not scary, but like anxiety-inducing game. So once again, our four nominees: Abyss Walker, Psycho Hunter, Friday the 13th, and The Stairwell Iliad. And I think it's quite obvious, at least from my point of view, who the winner is. That being Ludens with The Stairwell Iliad. Okay, so that brings us to the final category, which is, of course, Game of the Year, the most anticipated category of them all. And a Game of the Year should be well-rounded, of course, and it incorporates all those things in the rubric that you've been toiling away to try to figure out and incorporate, from innovation to sound and visual coherence, the polish, how well it plays, and of course how fun it is to play. So this year we have 6 nominees for Game of the Year, and yeah, let's get right into who they are. So the first nominee is Control CV with Floppy. And again, I think this, completely exhibits what we call a well-rounded game. It's got a mechanics, that you utilize to solve puzzles, and there's a gameplay loop. In terms of classic gameplay features like main menus, tutorials, all of these things, a UI, intuitive controls, well done animations, all of these things are well exhibited in Floppy. Next nominee is Blocky Cars, and again, very fun to play, super well done. Performance, polish, all of these things exist in leaps and bounds. Slightly unintuitive controls, maybe if you want to be ultra critical, especially in turning and using the drift key. But it's very innovative and super impressive stuff. Next is, maybe get the video to work for this one this time, is The Stairwell Iliad. Very creepy. The lighting, I think, in this is probably one of the best examples of lighting done across all the years I've been teaching the course, as well as the texturing, in order to get that right. And there's a whole heap of things that I'm sure even I'm unaware of that went into it. I mean, that's true for all these games, but maybe most true for this one. And again, like the fact that a single student did this is hugely impressive as well. Next nominee is from Team Vortex. And again, I think the only thing that really brings this one down a little bit is perhaps the performance when running this like through a browser, which is a little bit different, obviously, than running it locally. But a very fun, addictive game, different levels, incorporating different cameras and stuff like this was really well done. Again, it just ticks all the boxes, right? If any tutor were to mark this, they wouldn't really have much to say negatively. Yeah, again, and not much I can say negatively about it either. And next we have chicken tendies. Of course, like I said already, they're one of the most fun ones to play. Maybe simpler than the others, but that doesn't have to mean that it's worse, right? A really well executed, fun idea is, almost always better than one that's overly complicated but poorly executed. Um, and again, I spent the most time, maybe not the most time playing this one, but I spent a lot of time playing this one just because it was so fun. It definitely reminds me a little bit about the trick shot game from last year. Um, and then the next one on this list is Render Benders, Dante's, and Returnal. Again, I love a lot of my research is through like procedural generation. I like that they incorporated some procedural generation in their levels. Um, I'm a huge sucker for, like I said, the isometric art style. That was very well executed with these like somewhat displacement looking maps. And how the light incorporates with that, as well as the storyline of trying to escape damnation while playing as like a gardener. Well, this was slightly humorous. So for this year, these are what I consider the top 6 games. That being Floppy, Blocky Cars, The Stairwell Iliad, Speed Shopper, Fat Guys, and Dante's Returnal. Now, one thing that I'm going to do a little bit differently this year is that I'm not going to announce a winner. And you might be, that's kind of unfair. Who is the best? We want to know who the best is. What we've decided is that, and more information will be sent regarding this very shortly, like within the next day. And that is that the top 3 games will present, if available, on Tuesday next week. And they will be presenting in or during our yearly Innovation Day, where the honors students present their honors research to us as academics, the lecturers, of course, as well as industry. So this will also be an opportunity for these selected groups um, to present their work to many leading industry representatives. And this is a hugely beneficial opportunity for you guys to get your names out there and speak with these representatives. For one, maybe if you haven't lined up a job opportunity yet, or perhaps you just want to see what they are looking for in the next coming years. And if you're doing honors, well, this is still another good opportunity to see what the honors students are doing, um, and maybe plan for your future a little bit better. So the three nominees who will be presenting, who I'm providing this opportunity to present, goes to Blocky Cars, so that's Car Hat, Floppy, so that's Control CV, as well as the Stairwell Iliad, and that is Ludens. So on this day, the actual game of the year will be announced. And just to sweeten that deal, I think it's enough to get a free lunch. That's included as well as this opportunity to speak to potential employers directly. The winner will be receiving a 5,000 Rand, voucher. So, 5,000 Rands worth for you guys to split, obviously, and spend as the top CGV game of the year. So yeah, more information will be given to you guys soon, and we will move with that going forward. I just would like to say thank you to all the groups. I think this year overall was better than last year, and I would hope that that trend continues. And I'm hugely inspired by you guys to see what you're all able to achieve in such a short duration. So I think everyone deserves like a bit of a pat on their own back for all the hard work that they've put into this year. And I understand it's not the easiest of years. So that being said, it's even more of a noteworthy achievement with what you guys have done. Thank you.